Okay. So today we're going to do a deep dive into those first bikes, balance bikes versus pedal bikes, that whole debate.
Hmm.
And we're looking at this article from Milestones in Motherhood. It's by Dr. Casey Rickard. She's a pediatric physical therapist.
Oh, cool.
And this is perfect for anyone who is getting ready to buy their little one their first bike.
Okay.
Maybe you're trying to figure out all the developmental benefits, or you're just curious about this whole trend of balance bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting.
We're going to unpack some surprising facts,
Mm.
like how early kids can actually handle a balance bike,
Oh, wow.
the developmental advantages they offer, and a super important safety tip that you're not going to want to miss.
I'm excited to hear this. I think this choice goes way beyond just like the bike riding itself.
Right.
It's really about how kids develop in some unexpected ways.
Yeah. So first things first, what exactly is a balance bike?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory, but maybe we should...
I mean, it is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's like a bike, but you take away the pedals and all the complexity of pedaling.
Right.
Kids propel themselves with their feet on the ground, and that's how they master balance and coordination.
So it's like a stepping stone to a regular bike, but with a focus on those core skills.
Exactly. And to be clear, balance bikes aren't some magic solution or requirement for learning to ride.
Right.
It's just an option, a different approach that some parents are finding really beneficial.
Got it. So when are kids actually ready for a balance bike?
Yeah,
The article mentioned something about it being surprisingly young kids can.
it is surprisingly young. It's as young as 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
The key here is independent walking.
Okay.
Once your little one's walking on their own, they're likely ready to explore a balance bike.
Wow, that is younger than I expected.
Right.
I honestly thought it was more of a preschool age thing.
Yeah.
So if we're starting that early with balance bikes, what about the age for traditional bikes?
Yeah. Typically, kids start riding pedal bikes between 5 and 7 years old. But that can vary a lot, depending on the individual child,
Sure.
their development, how much exposure they've had to bikes. And that's where those early experiences with balance bikes can really come into play
Yeah.
and potentially make the transition to a pedal bike much smoother.
I can see that if they're already comfortable with balancing and learning to pedal, might feel less intimidating.
For sure.
But let's dive into the benefits of balance bikes
Mm-hmm.
beyond just balance and coordination.
Yeah,
The article mentions some pretty compelling ones.
absolutely. It's more than just balance and coordination.
Okay.
Think of balance bikes as little gyms on wheels.
Okay.
They build muscle strength, particularly in the legs and core, which is crucial for all sorts of physical activities.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Balance bikes also boost what's called motor planning,
Motor planning.
which is basically your brain's ability to figure out, plan, and execute a sequence of movements.
Okay.
And research is showing a strong link between motor planning and things like academic readiness and emotional regulation.
Hold on. So developing these physical skills early on can actually impact things like focus and self-control later down the line.
That's what the research is suggesting, and it's pretty fascinating.
Wow. Okay. I'm definitely starting to see the appeal here. And the article also talked a lot about safety,
Yeah,
which is obviously a huge concern for any parent.
of course. Yeah, you and me both.
Good.
Balance bikes have a lower center of gravity compared to traditional bikes,
Okay.
which makes them inherently more stable.
Right.
They're also lightweight, so kids can easily control them. And of course, their feet are always close to the ground.
Right.
That adds another layer of safety.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But even with all those safety features, I'm guessing helmets still a must?
Oh, absolutely. Helmets are non-negotiable.
Right.
Even on a balance bike.
Yeah.
Even if they're just riding on seemingly safe, flat ground,
Yeah.
accidents can happen in the blink of an eye.
Of course.
And protecting their heads is paramount.
Okay.
Can't stress that enough.
I hear you loud and clear on that one. So let's say you've decided to go the balance bike route.
Okay.
What are some things to look for when choosing one?
Well, cost is always a factor, of course.
Sure.
But you also need to consider your child's size and weight,
Uh-huh.
the seat height, and the overall weight of the bike itself.
Right. You want something they can handle.
Exactly. You want something they can comfortably handle and maneuver easily.
Okay. That makes sense. Are there different types of balance bikes to choose from?
There are. There are some balance bikes that even come with a pedal conversion kit. Well, you can transform it into a pedal bike later on.
Oh, wow. So you can potentially get more mileage out of it.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Though it is worth noting that those convertible models tend to be a bit heavier
Okay.
and might be better suited for older children.
Good to know. The article also briefly mentioned scooters as another option for developing certain skills.
Yeah.
What's the thinking there?
So scooters are fantastic for encouraging what's called single leg stance,
Single leg stand.
which basically means standing confidently on one leg.
Oh.
This is a fundamental skill for milestones that come later, like hopping, skipping, and even climbing stairs.
Wow.
As kids push off with one leg on a scooter, they're naturally developing that balance and strength on a single leg.
So it's not just about them zipping around having fun. They're
Yeah.
actually building those underlying skills.
Exactly.
I never would have made that connection.
What about specific types of scooters? Any recommendations?
Look for scooters that stand independently.
Okay.
This lets kids focus on the motor planning involved in propelling the scooter
Okay.
without having to worry about balancing it when they stop.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's get to the part I know a lot of listeners are excited about, brand recommendations.
Yeah.
We won't get into specific pricing or links because that can change quickly,
Right.
but we can definitely talk about some general categories and top picks.
For sure.
So for those first balance bikes, ideal for kids between 18 months and 2 years old.
Yep.
Early Rider and Strider are both excellent choices.
Oh.
Yeah, Early Rider has this model called the Super Velio,
Okay.
which features something called an active balance control system.
Interesting.
It provides different levels of support depending on the rider's skill level, making it great for beginners.
Okay, cool.
And Strider even offers a rocker base that you can attach to their bikes.
Wow.
So even pre-walkers can get used to the feel of the bike.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and start developing those early balance skills.
That's really cool. I love that there are options for even the littlest riders.
Yeah.
What about toddler balance bikes? For like the 2 to 3-year-olds?
Both Guardian and Strider are really strong contenders in that age group.
Okay.
They make really well-designed, durable bikes that are easy for toddlers to handle.
Cool.
Mhm.
As kids get a bit older, moving into that 3 to 4-year-old range,
Uh-huh.
are there any other brands that stand out?
Yeah, Guardian and Strider continue to be great options.
Okay.
Guardian bikes actually feature a steering limiter,
Oh, cool.
which helps prevent those sudden, sharp turns that can lead to spills.
That's smart.
They also come with a handbrake,
Okay.
which can be super helpful for getting kids used to the idea of braking before they transition to a pedal bike.
Yeah, those features sound like they could really help build confidence and make the whole learning process smoother.
Absolutely.
What about those convertible balance bikes you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so the Strider 14X Sport is a popular choice.
Okay.
It comes with that add-on pedal conversion kit, so it can grow with your child.
Awesome.
However, it is a bit on the heavier side,
Okay.
so it's better suited for kids on the older end of that pre-K age range.
Gotcha. Little Tykes also offers a balance-to pedal bike.
They do.
That's a good option if you're looking for something a little lighter and more manageable for younger or smaller kids.
Exactly.
Okay. So many great options. Now, for parents on a budget, are there any affordable balance bikes under $100?
There are Little Tykes, Credo, and Joy Store all offer balance bikes in like the $50 to $70 range.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, making them more accessible to a wider range of families.
Yeah. That's great to hear. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
Balance bikes,
Okay.
pedal bikes, developmental benefits, safety tips,
Mm-hmm.
and even specific brands to consider. It's a lot to digest.
It is. There's a lot to think about. But remember, there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to choosing a first bike.
You're right. It's all about considering your individual child and family needs.
Exactly. If you prioritize speed and want your little one to keep up with you on bike rides,
Okay.
a pedal bike with training wheels might be the way to go.
Gotcha.
But if you're looking for a more gradual transition to pedaling and want to prioritize those early developmental benefits we talked about,
Yeah.
a balance bike is definitely worth exploring.
Right. And this information is just a starting point.
Yeah.
The most important thing is to think about your child's personality,
Uh-huh.
their developmental stage, your family's lifestyle, and even your own personal preferences.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the options and choosing what feels best for your child.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What stands out to you as the biggest takeaway so far?
Honestly, I'm really surprised by how much more there is to this decision than I initially thought.
Right.
It's not just about picking a bike. It's
Yeah.
about understanding how that choice can impact a child's development in so many ways.
It's pretty fascinating.
It really is.
Okay, I am definitely ready to dive deeper. We've got tons more to unpack, so stick with us as we continue to explore the world of balance bikes.
Definitely. You know, one thing that really stood out to me from Dr. Rickard's article was her emphasis on letting children explore at their own pace.
Yeah.
This applies not only to introducing a balance bike, but also to transitioning to a pedal bike down the line.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in those milestones and timelines as parents,
Right.
especially when it comes to something like riding a bike.
Yeah, it's only natural to want to see our kids progress.
Right.
But it's so important to remember that every child develops differently and at their own pace. Pushing a child onto a bike before they're truly ready can actually backfire.
Oh, yeah.
It can create negative associations with the experience
Right.
and potentially even hinder their progress in the long run.
So patience is key. Let them lead the way
Mm.
and show us when they're ready for each new challenge.
Exactly.
The article also had some interesting tips on how to actually introduce a balance bike to a toddler.
Yeah.
Did anything in particular stand out to you?
Well, she recommends starting by lowering the seat all the way down.
Okay.
That way the child can comfortably place their feet flat on the ground and get a feel for the bike.
Okay.
At first, they might just walk alongside it,
Yeah.
maybe try to figure out how to get on and off.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine.
It's all about exploration and getting comfortable with the bike. It reminds me of when babies first start crawling.
Mm-hmm.
They often scoot around on their bellies or even crawl backward for a while before they figure out that whole forward motion thing.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
It really is all about experimentation and figuring things out on their own terms.
Yeah.
And as they start to gain more confidence, you can gradually offer a little bit of support.
Okay.
Maybe helping them balance the bike and get a feel for the motion.
Right.
But the key here is to follow their lead, not push them beyond their comfort zone.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And the article also had something to say about resisting the urge to pull or push a child on a balance bike while they're learning.
Yes.
Do you think there's some truth to that?
I do. I think it's a really common mistake we make as parents.
Right.
We want to help, but sometimes that help can actually get in the way of the learning process.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you're always pulling or pushing them, they're not really getting a chance to develop those essential balance skills on their own.
It's like when we try to help a child learn to walk by holding their hands too tightly.
Yes.
They need that freedom to wobble a bit and figure out their own balance.
Exactly. Pulling or pushing a child on a balance bike can turn it into more of a game than a genuine learning experience.
Right.
It's so important for them to feel that sense of instability and learn to correct it themselves.
Yeah.
That's how they build true balance and coordination.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm starting to understand the subtle nuances involved here.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the differences between balance bikes and traditional pedal bikes. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how those differences play out from a developmental standpoint.
Well, with a balance bike, the focus is entirely on maintaining balance and steering
Okay.
without the added complexity of pedaling.
Right.
So it really allows them to master those foundational skills before introducing the coordination required for pedaling.
So it streamlines the learning process in a way.
You could say that, and it can potentially lead to a much smoother transition to a pedal bike later on because they've already developed a strong sense of balance. They can focus more on coordinating the pedaling motion. Yeah.
Without having to worry as much about staying upright.
I bet that also does wonders for their confidence.
Yeah.
If they've already mastered balancing, the whole idea of pedaling might seem less daunting.
Absolutely. Confidence plays a huge role in learning any new skill.
For sure.
And that's especially true for something like riding a bike, which can be a bit scary at first.
Speaking of scary, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about safety.
Oh,
Which, as we both know, is paramount.
absolutely.
We've already touched on the importance of helmets.
Yep.
But what other safety tips should parents keep in mind when it comes to balance bikes? I feel like we can never be too careful,
You're right.
especially with little ones.
Choosing the right size bike is crucial.
Okay.
Your child should be able to comfortably straddle the bike with their feet flat on the ground.
Right.
If the bike is too big or too small, it can make it harder for them to balance and control it,
Yeah.
which could lead to accidents.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. And speaking of control, make sure the handlebars are adjusted to a comfortable height.
Okay.
They should be able to reach them easily without having to strain or hunch over.
Those are all great points. It's easy to overlook those details,
Yeah.
but they can make a world of difference in terms of safety and comfort. Anything else come to mind?
Just like with any outdoor activity, it's essential to choose a safe riding environment.
Yeah.
Start with a flat, smooth surface, ideally away from traffic and other hazards.
Right.
As they gain confidence and skills, you can gradually introduce them to more challenging terrains.
Right.
But safety should always be the top priority.
Absolutely. And I want to emphasize the importance of adult supervision,
Yes.
especially in the early stages,
Right.
even if they're riding in a safe environment.
Right.
It's crucial for an adult to be present, to provide guidance and intervene if necessary.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, good.
Oh.
Now, going back to those developmental benefits.
Okay.
We've already talked about balance, coordination, confidence. But Dr. Rickard's article delved into some other interesting advantages
Yeah,
that I think are worth highlighting.
definitely.
Okay, I'm all ears. What other developmental areas are boosted by riding a balance bike?
Well, balance bikes are fantastic for developing spatial awareness,
Facial awareness.
which is basically the ability to understand and navigate your position in relation to other objects and people.
Go.
As children maneuver a balance bike, they're constantly making judgments about distances, directions,
Right.
and their own body in space.
That's so interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But it makes perfect sense.
It's one of those skills that develops naturally through play and exploration.
Yeah.
And balance bikes provide a really fun and engaging way to foster that spatial awareness.
Cool. They also help develop gross motor skills,
Yes.
which involve the large muscles of the body used for things like walking, running, and jumping.
Exactly. So it's not just about those legs propelling the bike.
Right.
It's about building overall strength and coordination throughout the body.
So balance bikes engage a variety of muscle groups,
Yes, they do.
strengthening the core, legs, arms, back.
Uh-huh.
And as children learn to balance and steer,
Yeah.
they're refining those gross motor skills and improving their overall physical dexterity.
Exactly.
And those early experiences with gross motor skills lay the foundation for so many more complex movements and activities later on, right?
Absolutely. It's all interconnected.
Right.
From a developmental standpoint, balance bikes offer a whole wealth of benefits
Wow.
that extend far beyond simply learning to ride a bike. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
It really is. Now let's get a bit more practical for a minute.
Okay.
Dr. Rickard's article touched on some things to consider when choosing a balance bike.
Uh-huh.
But are there any other features or factors that parents might want to keep in mind?
Sure.
It can feel overwhelming when you're actually facing all those options in the store or online.
One thing that's often overlooked is the weight of the bike.
Okay.
You want something that's light enough for your child to handle easily.
Nice.
A heavy bike can be difficult to maneuver,
Right.
and that can discourage them from riding. Another key factor is the seat height. Make sure it's adjustable so you can raise it as your child grows.
Right.
And look for bikes with durable tires that can handle different terrain.
Those are all practical considerations that can make or break the whole experience.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on accessories?
Yeah?
Are there any must-haves?
A bell or horn is always a fun addition.
Yeah.
It can help children alert others to their presence,
Right.
which is especially important if they're riding near pedestrians or other cyclists.
Yeah, that's smart.
Some balance bikes also come with footrests,
Okay.
which can be helpful for kids who want to coast or practice gliding once they've picked up some speed.
Okay.
And while it's not strictly necessary, a cute basket or bag can add to the fun factor
Yeah.
and allow kids to bring along their favorite toys or treasures for the ride.
Those are some great suggestions. I love the idea of making it a truly enjoyable experience for them. So they're excited to keep practicing and developing those skills. Speaking of practicing,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to circle back to something we briefly touched on earlier.
Okay.
Training wheels.
Ah, yes.
It's a topic that comes up a lot in conversations about learning to ride a bike.
It is. It's a classic parenting dilemma, isn't it?
It really is. Dr. Rickard's article mentioned it briefly, but I think it deserves a little more attention.
Okay.
Some parents swear by training wheels,
Yeah.
while others see them as a hindrance. I'd love to hear your take on this.
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all answer,
Right,
which I know could be frustrating for parents seeking clear guidance.
of course.
It really depends on the individual child and their learning style.
Okay.
Some kids find training wheels helpful for getting comfortable with the pedaling motion
Uh-huh.
and the overall feel of a bike.
Right.
But the potential downside is that training wheels can create a false sense of stability,
Okay.
and that can actually make it harder for them to develop true balance skills in the long run.
So it's kind of a trade-off. They might gain confidence in pedaling,
Yeah,
but they might not be fully developing those crucial balance skills.
exactly. And because training wheels hold the bike upright,
Yeah.
kids don't necessarily learn to make those subtle adjustments and corrections
Oh, yeah.
that are so essential for maintaining balance on two wheels.
It's like they're being propped up
Yeah.
instead of learning to support themselves.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
And this can make the transition when those training wheels finally come off
Yeah.
a lot more abrupt and potentially even more challenging for them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If they haven't had that opportunity to develop those balance skills gradually,
Yeah.
being suddenly responsible for staying upright on their own can feel pretty scary.
Yeah.
So what's the alternative? If training wheels aren't always the balanced approach,
Right.
how can we help children transition to a pedal bike without them?
Well, that's where balance bikes can really shine
Okay.
because they've already mastered balancing.
Right.
The transition to a pedal bike can be much smoother. They can simply focus on coordinating the pedaling motion
Yeah.
without having to worry so much about staying upright.
It sounds like balance bikes can act as a natural bridge between walking and riding a traditional two-wheeler.
Exactly. They provide a really nice, gradual, and progressive approach
Yeah.
to developing the skills necessary for independent bike riding.
You know, we've talked a lot about the developmental benefits of balance bikes, which are obviously significant,
Mm-hmm.
but let's not forget about the pure fun factor.
Yes.
Riding a bike is such a classic, quintessential childhood experience.
Yes.
And balance bikes can introduce that joy of movement and exploration at such an early age.
I couldn't agree more.
I can still remember that feeling of freedom and accomplishment when I first learned to ride a bike without any help.
Right.
It's like a rite of passage for so many kids.
Exactly. And balance bikes can offer that same sense of empowerment at an even younger age.
Yeah.
They allow children to explore their world, keep up with their friends, and just experience that pure joy of movement in a whole new way.
It's like opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah.
And I imagine those positive experiences could have a ripple effect,
For sure.
boosting their self-esteem and encouraging them to try new things, not just in the physical realm, but in other areas of their lives as well.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that love of physical activity and a sense of adventure that can stay with them for years to come.
And speaking of fostering that love, Dr. Rickard also mentioned the importance of choosing a bike that aligns with your child's personality.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some kids are just born daredevils,
Right. Yeah.
always craving speed and challenges, while others are a bit more cautious and might prefer a slower pace.
That's such an important point. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Just like with any toy or activity, it's about finding something that genuinely resonates with your child's individual temperament and interests.
So for those little ones who are always on the go and love to push boundaries, you might lean towards a balance bike designed for speed and maneuverability.
Exactly.
While for a child who's a bit more cautious and contemplative,
Yeah,
a bike that prioritizes stability and control might be a better fit.
absolutely.
I love that. It's about matching the bike to the child, not trying to fit the child to the bike.
Right.
That's a valuable lesson that applies to so much more than just choosing a bike.
It really does. It's all about recognizing and honoring each child's unique strengths and preferences.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of balance bikes, I want to bring it back to you, our listener. We've shared a ton of information, insights, and expert opinions.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the decision of whether to choose a balance bike or a pedal bike for your little one is a very personal one.
You're absolutely right. There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's about weighing the pros and cons, considering your child's individual needs and personality, and ultimately making the choice that feels best for your family.
We hope that this deep dive has given you the knowledge and the confidence to make an informed decision.
Yes.
And above all, remember to prioritize safety. Encourage exploration. And foster a love of movement that will benefit your child for years to come.
And if you have any other questions or want to share your own experiences with balance bikes, we'd love to hear from you. Keep the conversation going.
Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of balance bikes. We'll catch you next time for another exploration of a topic that matters to you. All right, so we're in the home stretch of our deep dive into balance bikes.
Yeah.
We've covered a ton of ground, you know, from developmental benefits and safety tips to that age-old training wheels debate.
The big debate.
But I have a feeling there's still more to uncover.
You're right. There are a few more nuggets of wisdom from Dr. Rickard's article that I think are worth exploring.
Okay, I'm ready for those final gems. What else caught your eye?
One thing that really resonated with me was her emphasis on the social and emotional aspects of bike riding.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about those physical skills.
Right.
It's about building confidence, independence, and a sense of adventure.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I can still remember that feeling of freedom and accomplishment when I first learned to ride a bike without any help.
Yeah.
It's like a rite of passage for so many kids.
Exactly. And balance bikes can offer that same sense of empowerment at an even younger age.
Right.
They allow children to explore their world, keep up with their friends, and just experience that pure joy of movement in a whole new way.
It's like opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
It is.
And I imagine those positive experiences can have a ripple effect.
Right.
Boosting their self-esteem and encouraging them to try new things,
For sure.
not just in the physical realm, but in other areas of their lives as well.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that love of physical activity
Yeah.
and a sense of adventure that can stay with them for years to come.
And speaking of fostering that love, Dr. Rickard also mentioned the importance of choosing a bike
Yes.
that aligns with your child's personality.
The personality is huge.
I mean, some kids are just born daredevils,
Right.
always craving speed and challenges, while others are a bit more cautious
Yeah.
and might prefer a slower pace.
That's such an important point. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, just
Yeah.
like with any toy or activity.
Uh-huh.
It's about finding something that genuinely resonates with your child's individual temperament and interests.
So for those little ones who are always on the go and love to push boundaries,
Yeah.
you might lean towards a balance bike designed for speed and maneuverability.
Exactly.
While for a child who's a bit more cautious and contemplative,
Right.
a bike that prioritizes stability and control might be a better fit.
Absolutely.
I love that. It's about matching the bike to the child,
Yeah.
not trying to fit the child to the bike.
Yeah.
That's a valuable lesson.
It is.
That applies to so much more than just choosing a bike.
It really does. It's all about recognizing and honoring each child's unique strengths and preferences.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of balance bikes,
Yes.
I want to bring it back to you, our listener.
Okay.
We've shared a ton of information, insights, and expert opinions.
For sure.
But at the end of the day, the decision of whether to choose a balance bike or a pedal bike for your little one
Yeah.
is a very personal one.
You're absolutely right. There's no right or wrong answer.
Right. It's about weighing the pros and cons, considering your child's individual needs and personality, and ultimately making the choice that feels best for your family.
Exactly.
We hope that this deep dive has given you the knowledge and the confidence to make an informed decision.
Absolutely.
And above all, remember to prioritize safety, encourage exploration,
Yes.
and foster a love of movement that will benefit your child for years to come.
And if you have any other questions or want to share your own experiences with balance bikes, we would love to hear from you. Keep the conversation going.
Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of balance bikes. We'll catch you next time for another exploration of a topic that matters to you.